Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today, we're opening up the legislative textbook to what I think is one of the most critical parts of corporate law.
But one that's often overlooked.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're not talking about the flashy stuff, finance or M&A. We're talking about the basic plumbing, the registers, the meetings, the paper trail that proves a company actually exists and, well, functions democratically.
Indeed. We are diving deep into Chapter 7 of the Companies Act 2013, specifically Sections 88 to 122, which cover management and administration.
Right.
And you have to think of these sections as the legal DNA of a corporation. A company is, at its heart, an artificial legal entity. It's a creation of the law totally distinct from its owners. And while directors run the day-to-day,
Shareholders, the owners, they have to sign off on the big stuff.
they must ratify all key strategic actions, and that's where the rules come in.
And that right there is the crucial tension, isn't it? Management wants efficiency, but ownership demands accountability. So our mission today is to get a really deep, practical understanding of why these core compliance mechanisms exist.
And how they're applied in the real world.
Yes. We want to move past just reciting rules and really get the principle behind the regulation. By the end of this, you, the listener, will have mastered the core requirements for keeping records, for reporting annually, running meetings, and even the specific exemptions for a tiny entity like a one-person company or OPC.
And we will be using the strict legal terms, but we'll always start with the why. Because in compliance, being late or being incorrect, it's the same as being non-compliant.
The perfect place to start.
Yeah.
So Module 1, we begin with the absolute foundation. Who owns what? The law mandates meticulous record keeping.
It has to. At any given moment, the company, and just as importantly, the regulator, has to be able to identify its members, its creditors, and its security holders. And this whole framework is anchored in Section 88.
So if a company is a legal person, this is its birth certificate.
Its birth certificate and its biography of ownership, all rolled into one. It's the official paper trail. So every company, especially one limited by shares, must maintain a register of members.
And if they've issued debt.
Then they need a separate register of debenture holders, and maybe even a register of any other security holders if they've issued things like warrants or special bonds.
And these records have to be in specific formats. We're not just talking about a spreadsheet.
Oh no, the law is very precise. We're talking about Form No, MGT1 for that register of members,
Okay.
and Form MGT2 for the debenture holders and any other security holders. The rule here is about a constant, immediate reflection of reality.
Which brings us to our first really critical timeline, doesn't it? The time limit rule under Rule 5.
Absolutely. This is the operational heartbeat of a company's registry department. It's designed to make sure the public record is never, ever stale.
So what is that deadline? And why is it so short?
Entries. Any entry, whether it's for a transfer of shares, an allotment, any change,
Yeah,
it has to be made in the register within 7 days.
just 7 days.
7 days from the date of approval by the board of directors or a committee authorized by the board.
Wow, okay. 7 days is an incredibly short runway. Why be so aggressive? Is the risk of an outdated register really that high?
The risk is substantial. I mean, think about it. If a company is facing legal action or maybe a hostile takeover attempt, the integrity of that register must be unimpeachable.
Right, you need to know exactly who owns what right now.
Exactly. If the company fails to update it in time, a director could, in theory, vote shares that they've already sold. Or worse, dividends could be paid to the wrong person. The 7-day rule just minimizes that window for error or, potential bad faith.
And this isn't just for simple cash for shares allotments, is it? It applies to much more complex actions.
Certainly, it applies equally to things like the forfeiture of shares, where you take them back for non-payment, or a complex buyback, a reduction in capital, or even issuing sweat equity shares to your employees.
So even if the deal took months to finalize.
The moment that board or committee approves the final list of changes, the clock starts. 7 days, update the record.
Wait, let's make this practical. Let's use the example of Luxy Hairstyles Private Limited. They're allotting shares to a 4-year-old named Mila. The law is clear. A minor can't enter into a contract.
Right.
So how does the 7-day rule apply here, and what does the register actually have to show?
Well, the register must reflect legal reality. And since a minor is legally incompetent to contract, Mila cannot be a member in the eyes of the law.
Okay.
So when the registry team makes that entry in the Register of Members in Form MGT1, it can't just list Mila's name. The entry has to explicitly include the guardian's details, in this case, Mr. Zoe. That shows the contractual capacity is with the legally competent guardian.
I see. So you're complying with Section 88 and basic contract law at the same time.
Precisely.
Okay, that sets the standard for domestic records. But companies go global. They have security holders all over the world. The law allows for what's called a foreign register.
And the logic here is just pure efficiency. Instead of forcing someone in, say, London to handle complex international paperwork for a share transfer, you allow the company to keep a dedicated register where they operate.
But it's not a separate legal entity, is it?
No, and that's a crucial point. The foreign register is explicitly deemed to be part of the company's principal register back in India. It all ties back to the register office.
So if a company decides to do this, there are strict filing requirements. What are the key timelines we need to master here?
There are two, and it's vital not to mix them up. The first one is about telling the regulator, the ROHO-C. If the company changes the location of that foreign office or just decides to shut down the foreign register entirely,
They have to file a form.
they have to file a notice with the Registrar of Companies in Form No on GT3 within 30 days.
30 days for regulatory notification. Okay, what's the second tighter timeline?
That's the one for internal synchronization. It's critical. A copy of every single entry made in that foreign register, every transfer, every allotment must be transmitted back to the registered office in India within 15 days after the entry is made.
15 days. So the internal deadline is half the external one. Why?
Because the principal register in India must always be the single source of truth. If a transfer happens in New York, the Indian head office needs to know about it fast.
To make sure dividends are calculated correctly, for example.
Exactly, or to ensure that foreign entry doesn't conflict with the domestic one. That 15-day period just emphasizes the central authority of the main register.
Okay, now we get into the really complex area of ownership. Peeling back the layers to find the ultimate controller. This is where the law tries to separate the legal owner from the beneficial owner. This is Section 89.
Right. And this section is all about the split between legal formality and economic reality. It defines beneficial interest as the right to exercise control or to receive or participate in any dividend or other distribution.
So, a bank might hold shares as a custodian, making them the legal owner.
But they have to declare who the true client is, the person actually getting the money. That's the beneficial owner. This just ensures the identity of the true economic owner is documented.
But Section 89 is just the start. The real anti-secrecy measure is Section 90, which is all about identifying the significant beneficial owner, or SBO.
Yes, and this section is designed specifically to stop people from hiding behind complex, multi-layered structures. Shell corporations, trusts, you name it.
So the company has a duty to find the person at the top.
A non-negotiable duty to identify the individual. And it must be a natural person. We're looking for the human being at the end of the chain of body corporates.
Okay, let's use the strict terminology. What's the minimum ownership that triggers SBO status?
The threshold is not less than 10%. But, and this is the key, this 10% must be held indirectly or held indirectly together with any direct holdings. That indirect holding is the main trigger.
So if I own 50% directly, I'm on the register members anyway. The SBO rules are for people using intermediaries.
That's it.
And you gave us a great mnemonic for the criteria attached to that 10% threshold.
Yes, the 10% SVD rule, it stands for
Go on.
1, S for shares, so 10% of the shares, 2, V for voting rights, 10% of the voting rights, and 3, D for distributable dividend, 10% of the total distributable dividend.
And there's a fourth one, is there? It's less mathematical.
Correct. The fourth test is a catch-all. It applies if the individual exercises significant influence or control in any manner, other than just through direct holdings. So even if someone structures their holdings to be just under 10%, if they still have the power to direct company policy, they're an SBO.
Okay, let's talk enforcement. The company suspects Mr. X is an SBO, but he hasn't declared himself. What happens next? What are the consequences of failure?
The company has a duty to investigate. They must send a notice to Mr. X in Form No. Big N4.
And he has how long to respond?
He's given 30 days from the date of that notice to provide the information.
And if he just ignores it? Or gives an answer the board doesn't believe?
Then the company's compliance team has to move fast. They must apply to the tribunal, the National Company Law Tribunal, within a very tight window, just 15 days after that initial 30-day period expires.
That 15-day application period is crucial. So what's the worst-case scenario order the tribunal can issue?
Oh, it's severe. It's designed to essentially freeze the economic value of the shares until the person complies. The tribunal can restrict the transfer of the shares, the right to receive dividends, and most importantly, the exercise of voting rights attached to those shares.
So the shares become completely sterile, can't sell them, can't vote them, can't earn from them. That is corporate punishment.
Absolutely. And it gets worse. If the person doesn't get those restrictions lifted within 1 year, the shares are automatically transferred to the Investor Education and Protection Fund Authority, the IEPF. They effectively revert to the state.
Wow.
It highlights just how serious Section 90 is. It's the law's biggest stick against hidden ownership. And we should also mention, intentionally providing false SBO info is treated as fraud under Section 447. This isn't just a fine, it's a criminal risk.
Okay, moving from the constant vigilance of registers to the big yearly public disclosure, the annual return. This is the mandatory snapshot of the company's structure filed for everyone to see.
This is Section 92, and the logic is simple. Mandatory yearly public disclosure of key internal facts to the Registrar of Companies, the ROC.
What kind of fact?
It covers everything. The shareholding pattern, its debt profile, changes in directors and KMPs, meeting details, even how much they were all paid. It's the company's annual report card for corporate democracy.
And the logistics. Which form and what's the deadline?
The main form is Form No, MGT7, but there's an abridged version, MGT7A, for a one-person company and a small company. The hard deadline is 60 days from the date the annual general meeting, the AGM, was actually held.
60 days? But what if the company is, a mess and the AGM just doesn't happen? Maybe there's a lack of quorum. Does the filing deadline just vanish?
Not at all. And this is a point that trips up so many people. The obligation is absolute. If no AGM was held, you still have to file the annual return within 60 days of the date the AGM should have been held.
And you have to explain why it didn't happen.
Yes, you have to include a clear statement detailing the reasons for the non-holding.
Let's use our example, Big Fox Entertainment Limited. They scheduled their AGM for September 30th, but it failed due to a lack of quorum. Their directors argued, hey, the meeting never happened, so no contravention.
And that argument is dismissed immediately by the Act. The clock started on September 30th. Big Fox had until November 29th, 60 days, to file that return regardless.
And the penalties for failing are steep.
They're designed to be. It's 10,000 rupees per day of default for the company and the officers, up to 5 lakh rupees. It just shows that procedural compliance is non-negotiable.
Okay, so given how much detail is in the annual return, the government doesn't just take the company's word for it. For bigger companies, there's a mandatory external check.
That's right, a compliance audit. It has to be performed by a company secretary in practice. The certificate they issue, which is filed in Form No, MKC-8, is their professional assurance to the ROC that the return is accurate and the company has complied with the Act.
So what triggers this? What are the thresholds for a company being big enough to need this certification?
There's 1 qualitative status and 2 quantitative thresholds. So you need certification if you are 1, a listed company.
Okay, that makes sense.
2, a company with a paid-up share capital of 10 crore rupees or more. Or 3, a company with a turnover of 50 crore rupees or more.
So those numbers are the government's way of saying, you're a significant player and we need an independent expert to vouch for you.
Precisely. And the professional responsibility on that company secretary is immense. If they sign off on a return in Form MGT-8 knowing it's false, they face a penalty of 2 lakh rupees. So there's no rubber stamping.
Right. So these documents are created, they're filed.
Yeah.
But they also have to be accessible to stakeholders. Let's talk about access under Section 94.
These registers and returns must be kept at the registered office, and they have to be open for inspection during business hours on every working day.
And the law is specific about business hours.
It mandates a minimum of 2 hours every working day for inspection.
Who gets to look for free and who has to pay?
Members, debenture holders, and beneficial owners can inspect for free. Anyone else, an analyst, a competitor, can inspect, but they have to pay a fee, which can't be more than 50 rupees.
And if they want copies, what's the turnaround time?
Very quick. The company has to supply copies within 7 days of getting the fee, and the fee itself is capped at 10 rupees per page. This is to stop companies from using administrative delays to block information requests.
Finally, let's talk about how long you have to keep these records. We need to lock in the MP 8.8 mnemonic for these preservation periods.
MP 8.8. It's a great way to remember it. It separates what you keep forever from what you keep for a long time.
So what does it stand for?
M is for the register of members. That and the foreign register must be preserved permanently. Ownership history can never be lost.
And P.
P is for proceedings or the minutes books, also preserved permanently.
Okay, M and P are permanent. What about the 8.8?
The 8.8 stands for 8 years. The register of debenture holders and copies of all annual returns, along with their attachments like MGT8, must be preserved for 8 years.
The idea that ownership records and minutes are permanent just underscores their importance as the unalterable history of the corporation.
It really does.
All right, Module 3. If the registers are the proof of ownership, then the general meetings are the exercise of that ownership. This is the core of corporate democracy.
This is where shareholders get to ratify or veto what the board has been doing. We're mainly dealing with 2 types of meetings here. First, the annual general meeting, or AGM, which is mandated by Section 96.
Well, it's for routine stuff, right?
Yes. What's called ordinary business adopting accounts, declaring dividends, appointing auditors. Then you have the extraordinary general meeting, or EGM, under Section 100. That's for urgent special business that just can't wait for the next AGM.
Let's focus on the non-negotiable timing for the AGM. We need to lock in the 9-6-15 rule.
This mnemonic is fundamental for any compliance officer, so 9. The very first AGM has to be held within 9 months of the close of the company's first financial year, and there is no possibility of an extension for this first one.
9 months for the first one. Got it. What's 6?
6. Subsequent AGMs have to be held within 6 months of the close of the financial year.
And 15.
15. There can never be more than a 15-month gap between the date of one AGM and the date of the next one.
So the 6-month rule is the standard, but that 15-month gap is the absolute ceiling to stop companies from just, delaying talking to their owners.
Exactly. And while the registrar can grant a 3-month extension for that subsequent 6-month deadline, the 9-month rule for the first AGM and the 15-month rule between any two are absolute. No exceptions.
Beyond dates, the law also regulates the environment of the AGM. It'd have to be during business hours. That's 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and never on a national holiday.
And the location is restricted, too. It has to be at the registered office or within the same city, town, or village.
Unless you're an unlisted company.
Right. An unlisted company can hold it anywhere in India, provided they get unanimous consent in writing or electronically from all members entitled to vote.
Okay, before any decision can be made, the owners have to be properly informed. The notice requirement under Section 101 sets a high bar.
A very high bar. The standard is a minimum of 21 clear days notice. And the word clear is absolutely precise.
What does it mean?
It means you have to exclude the day the notice is served, and you have to exclude the day of the meeting itself.
And you also have to factor in postal delays, right? The 48 hours deeming rule.
Yes. If you send the notice by post, it's legally deemed served 48 hours after you post it. So that 48-hour period must also be excluded from your 21 clear days count. If you cut corners, even by 1 day, the entire meeting could be declared invalid.
Why is it so rigorously enforced?
It's the core of shareholder protection. That notice comes with the agenda and, crucially, the explanatory statement for any special business. Shareholders need those 21 days to review complex deals, talk to their lawyers, or just arrange to be there.
But if there's an emergency, there is a way to call a meeting on shorter notice. But the bar is incredibly high.
It's the highest democratic hurdle in the Act. We call it the 95% hurdle. You can call an AGM or EGM on shorter notice, but only if you get consent from members holding not less than 95% of the voting share capital.
95%. Let's apply that to Akash Subs Limited. They wanted a quick EGM. They got 80% of members to agree. Is their meeting valid?
Absolutely not. 80% isn't good enough. To meet that 95% legal threshold, they needed consent from members holding a much higher value of shares. Since they missed it, the meeting is invalidly called, and any resolution they passed is voidable.
The law is really protecting that last 5%.
It is. Now, before we move on, what if the company does everything right, sends the notice, but one shareholder says, I never got the email?
Good question.
Section 1014 is the safety net here. An accidental omission to give notice, or the non-receipt of notice, does not invalidate the proceedings. The company just has to prove it did its part proof of dispatch, a successful email transmission report, and so on.
Okay, so we have notice. Now we need people to show up. Quorum, under Section 103, is the minimum presence required.
And the terminology here is key. Only members personally present count toward the quorum. Proxies are explicitly excluded.
Let's run through the quorum chart for a public company. It scales with size.
It does. If the company has up to 1,000 members, you need 5 members personally present.
And from 1,001 to 5,000.
15 members personally present.
Over 5,000.
30 members personally present.
For a private company.
Much simpler. Just 2 members personally present.
The complexity comes in when you have corporate entities or different share classes. Let's use illustration 11. The agenda is to appoint a managing director. We have A representing a governor, B and C who are preference shareholders, D representing 2 companies, and E, F, G, and H who are all proxies.
Okay, let's filter them. A, representing the governor, counts as 1 member present in person.
Right.
B and C are preference shareholders. Since appointing an MD doesn't affect their rights, they are excluded from the quorum count for this item.
So they don't count at all. What about D?
D represents 2 different companies, YL Ltd and Z Ltd. A representative of a body corporate is deemed a member present in person, so D counts as 2 members.
Okay, so that's 3 so far. What about the proxies?
E, F, G, H, all proxies. They are unconditionally excluded. So our total quorum count is 1 plus 2, which equals 3 numbers. If the company needed 5, the meeting fails.
So what if that meeting fails to meet quorum within half an hour?
The law has a solution, the adjourned meeting rule. The meeting automatically stands adjourned to the same day, time, and place in the next week.
And what's the critical rule for that adjourned meeting?
If quorum is still not present within half an hour at the adjourned meeting, the members who are present, no matter how few, shall form the quorum. It's the safety valve to make sure business can eventually get done.
Okay, last piece here. Proxies. Essential for shareholders who can't attend. But they're a limited tool. What are the key limitations?
A proxy has no right to speak at the meeting, and they can only vote when a poll is demanded. They are barred from voting by a simple show of hands.
And there's an intricate rule to stop one person from collecting too much proxy power. The dual limit rule.
Yes, under Rule 19. It has 2 caps. First, a person can be a proxy for up to 50 members. That's a headcount cap. Second, those 50 members' holdings can't exceed 10% of the total share capital. That's a financial cap.
So you have to satisfy both conditions.
Both. And there's one exception. If a person is a proxy for a single member who already holds more than 10%, that proxy can only act for that 1 member.
And finally, the administrative deadline.
The proxy form has to be deposited at the registered office at least 48 hours before the meeting. A minute late and it's invalid.
Okay, Module 4. We have valid meeting, we have quorum. Now we get to the actual decision-making, the resolution.
And we have 2 fundamental types. The everyday decision, the standard one, is the ordinary resolution, or OR.
And the majority for an OR.
It's a simple majority. The votes in favor just have to exceed the votes against. It's 50% plus 1. That's the default.
But for the big stuff, the structural changes, we need the fortified majority, the special resolution, or SR. This is a much higher bar.
This is the corporate equivalent of amending the Constitution. The votes in favor must be not less than 3 times the number of votes cast against it, the 3-to-1 rule.
Let's do a quick practical check on that math. If 100 votes are cast against a resolution, how many do you need in favor for it to pass as an SR?
You need a minimum of 300 votes in favor. If you get 299 in favor and 100 against, it fails. The 3-to-1 requirement has to be met exactly or exceeded.
This high hurdle is for major decisions.
Yes, things like selling the main business or altering the memorandum of association. It requires a broad, entrenched consensus.
And that level of scrutiny demands total transparency, which brings us to the explanatory statement under Section 102.
Its purpose is full disclosure. It's required for all special business. It has to provide all the facts so members can understand the meaning, scope, and implications of what they're voting on.
And the most critical part is disclosing any personal interest.
Absolutely. It has to disclose the nature of concern or interest, financial or otherwise, of every director, KMP, and their relatives. If a director is going to make money from a deal, that has to be spelled out.
And if they don't disclose it, and they benefit.
The law is punitive. That person has to hold the benefit and trust for the company. And they're liable to a penalty of 50,000 rupees or 5 times the amount of benefit they received, whichever is higher.
A powerful disincentive. Okay, let's talk voting modes. What are the 4 recognized ways shareholders can vote?
They are show of hands, electronic means, e-voting, a demand for poll, and a postal ballot.
Quick administrative question. If shares are held jointly by 2 people who disagree, who gets the vote?
Seniority rules. The vote of the senior joint holder who tenders a vote is the one that's accepted. And seniority is just determined by the order of names in the register of members.
Okay. And for electronic voting, what are the key timelines for setting up the voting window?
The company has to set a cutoff date to determine eligibility. That date can't be earlier than 7 days before the meeting. And the remote e-voting facility must be open for not less than 3 days and close at 5 p.m. on the day before the meeting.
And if I vote remotely, I can still attend the meeting, but I can't vote again, right?
Correct. You've already cast your vote. You can't do it twice.
Finally, the demand for a poll. This guarantees votes are weighted by shareholding. When does the poll happen?
If the poll is demanded for adjourning the meeting or appointing the chairman, it has to be taken forthwith, immediately. For any other question, it has to be taken within 48 hours.
And the postal ballot. This is for critical items where you want people to vote without attending.
Yes. The notice goes out, and members get 30 days to send their assent or dissent back.
Can you give some examples of mandatory items that usually require a postal ballot?
These are the big ones. Altering the objects clause, selling the whole undertaking of the company, a buyback of shares, or issuing shares with differential rights.
But there's a major exemption for small companies here.
Absolutely. OPCs in companies with up to 200 members are not required to do any business by postal ballot. They can just handle it at a general meeting. It simplifies compliance immensely.
All right, Module 5. A valid meeting is only half the battle. Now you have to document those decisions for the regulator and for the company's own records. Let's start with filing resolutions under Section 117.
This is all about public disclosure. It ensures any decision that fundamentally alters the company's structure or top management is visible to the ROCE.
What are the core things that must be filed?
First, every single special resolution, that 3x majority we talked about. And second, certain critical board resolutions, like those for appointing or changing the terms of a managing director.
And the filing timeline is another non-negotiable deadline.
Correct. A copy of the resolution and the explanatory statement has to be filed with the ROCE within 30 days. The form is Form No, MGT 14. Miss that 30-day deadline, and penalties start accruing for every single day of delay.
Day 31 means trouble.
Big trouble. It enforces speed and diligence.
Okay, now for the internal record. The minutes of meetings under Section 118. The law says they have to be a fair and correct summary.
And that phrase gives the chairman some unusual power. It's called the chairman's absolute discretion.
What can they do with it?
The chairman has the legal right to exclude any matter from the minutes if they believe it's one of 3 things. 1, it's defamatory of any person. 2, it's irrelevant or immaterial. Or 3, it's detrimental to the interests of the company.
Why give the chairman that power? Doesn't that risk suppressing dissent?
It's a balance. The law recognizes that a robust discussion might involve speculation, sensitive commercial secrets, or even potentially libelous comments. This lets the company have honest internal debates without creating a public record that could be damaging. The key is fair and correct summary, not a complete transcript.
And once the minutes are prepared, what's the timeline for signing them?
The chairman has to sign and date them within 30 days of the conclusion of the meeting. If the chairman, say, dies within that window, then a director authorized by the board has to sign them.
And how do postal ballot results get recorded?
A brief report on the postal ballot, the resolution, the voting result, the scrutinizer summary, has to be entered into the minutes book within 30 days of the resolution being passed.
Now, in the modern era, most of these records are digital. Section 120 covers maintenance in electronic form. The standards for security are incredibly high.
The digital record has to be just as reliable as the paper one, if not more so. It's basically a corporate cybersecurity checklist.
Let's use our mnemonic, ANCERS, to lock in these requirements.
Perfect. ANCERS outlines the standards. A is for alteration. The system must protect against unauthorized alteration or tampering.
Dan.
Non-rewritable. Records have to be kept in a format that's non-rewritable and non-erasable. Think of a permanent PDF archive. Cybersecurity. Frequent daily backups that are authenticated and securely stored. Easy retrieval. Records must be easy to find and reproduce for inspection, readable, and capable of being printed in a legible form.
And finally, S.
Signatory repudiation. The system must ensure that the digital signatory cannot later claim the signature isn't genuine. This requires robust authentication.
That is a profoundly high bar for digital compliance.
Yeah.
And just to confirm, like paper minutes, electronic minute books must also be preserved permanently.
Indeed. Digital storage does not eliminate the obligation of eternal custodianship.
All right, let's wrap up with the most streamlined corporate form there is. The one-person company, or OPC. Since all these meeting rules are about protecting the minority, what happens when there is no minority? When there's only one member?
Well, the rules for corporate democracy become almost entirely irrelevant, and this leads to massive simplification under Section 122. It gives a whole list of sections from this chapter that just do not apply to an OPC.
So which specific rules are they exempt from?
They're exempt from Sections 98 and 100 to 111. That means all the rules on the tribunal calling meetings, EGMs, the 21-day notice, the explanatory statement, quorum rules, proxies, voting methods like polls, and, crucially, the mandatory postal ballot requirement.
That just eliminates almost all the procedural complexity. It shifts the focus from convening a meeting to just documenting a decision.
That's the perfect way to put it. For an OPC, the legal fiction of a meeting is replaced by a simple documentation process.
So what is this simplified decision-making mechanism for passing a resolution?
It's remarkably simple. The single member just has to communicate the resolution to the company. That communication then gets entered in the minutes book, and then it's signed and dated by the member.
So the member decides, writes it down, and signs it. And that's the meeting.
That is the entire general meeting. And the date on which the minutes book is signed is deemed to be the date of the meeting for all legal purposes. No notice, no quorum, no voting procedure.
But just to be clear, they are not exempt from public reporting. All right.
No, not at all. They still have to maintain the statutory registers, and they must file the annual return, although they can use the shorter MGT-7A form. The simplification is procedural, not total immunity from oversight.
This has been a rigorous review of the regulatory scaffolding of corporate life. We've established those non-negotiable compliance runways. 7 days for updating the register of members, that urgent SBO process, a combined 45 days from notice to tribunal application, and the consistent 30-day mandate for filing special resolutions.
And we locked in those strict thresholds for democracy, the 95% consent for shorter notice, and that rigorous 3-to-1 vote requirement for any special resolution.
And when you look across all these rules, the principle is clear.
It's about protecting corporate democracy and ensuring transparency for owners, creditors, and the public. We saw that failing to comply, especially with things like the annual return, attracts significant escalating financial penalties. The cost of administrative inertia is high.
So, to leave you, our serious learner, with a final thought to mull over, let's go back to that ultimate corporate failure, the inability to hold an AGM. We noted the tribunal can intervene and even direct that one member present in person or by proxy shall be deemed to constitute a meeting. Now, if the tribunal is forced to do that, making a single member the quorum for a full AGM, that individual holds the entire legal power of the shareholder body.
So the challenge then becomes one of fiduciary duty. Even though that one person legally constitutes the quorum and can technically pass any resolution they want, they still have to make sure the meeting proceedings and the minutes are fair and correct under Section 118.
How does a single person demonstrate fairness and correctness when they are, by necessity, the judge, jury, and the entire electorate?
It's the ultimate ethical tightrope walk, isn't it? It shows that while the law provides a mechanism for absolute control in a crisis, the spirit of good governance demands so much more than just minimum legal compliance.
A fascinating challenge of power and singular responsibility.
Indeed.
That's it for this detailed exploration of corporate management and administration. We look forward to diving deeper with you next time.